Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. Today we're looking at the future of cities. Yeah, you know where most of us live. Our guide is The Future of Cities, a new book by Dr. Fatima Barbara Heggie. Now she's an innovation economy researcher. I mean, how cool is that? Oh, wait, there's more. She also painted the cover of her own book. Talk about multi-talented.
It's like art meets science, right? You don't see that every day. I'm really interested to see how that creative side of her comes out in her urban planning ideas.
Well, one thing's for sure. She doesn't shy away from the tough stuff. Like right off the bat, the book says cities are at a crossroads. What do you think she means by that?
Well, she points out that cities are dealing with a lot of serious problems right now. Population growth, which puts pressure on resources and infrastructure, climate change with all the crazy weather and rising sea levels, and then there's inequality, which can really destabilize a city both socially and economically. But it's not all doom and gloom. She also sees a ton of potential for positive change, and that's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, because her main idea seems to be that we can use data and insights from residents to
Mm.
actually help solve these problems. But how does that work in the real world? Got any good examples from the book?
Oh, yeah, definitely. One that really stood out to me was using data to improve traffic flow, like using sensors and stuff to collect real-time data on traffic patterns. Then cities can adjust traffic lights, implement smart parking systems, even suggest alternate routes to drivers. And that not only makes commuting less of a pain, but it can actually improve air quality too, which benefits
Okay.
everyone.
Wow, so even something as simple as tweaking traffic lights can have a huge impact. But I'm guessing data alone can't solve everything. Dr. Hagee also talks a lot about the importance of leadership, doesn't she?
Oh, absolutely. Strong leadership is essential. She emphasizes the role of mayors and city leaders in making change happen, encouraging collaboration, and really empowering communities to be part of the solution. It's not just about technology, it's about having leaders who can inspire action and use those data-driven insights effectively.
Are there any cities or mayors out there who are doing a really good job of this, like using data and innovation to tackle these challenges?
There are actually quite a few. Copenhagen is a great example. They've been using data to create a super efficient and sustainable transportation system with a big focus on cycling and public transit. They've also implemented smart energy grids to cut down on carbon emissions. And then you have Singapore, which is like a poster child for using data to manage everything, from water resources to crowd control. It's one of the most technologically advanced and livable cities in the world.
Those are some pretty inspiring examples. It seems like a lot of Dr. Hickey's examples are focused on Europe, though. Do you think her ideas would work in cities all over the world? Or is there something unique about the European context?
Well, the book definitely leans heavily on European examples, but I think the main principles and strategies could definitely be applied globally.
Mm.
The challenges of urbanization are pretty universal, and the potential of data-driven solutions isn't limited to any one region. Obviously, you need to adapt the specific approaches to different contexts, but the core concepts are definitely transferable.
That makes sense. Now, the book also dives into a bunch of specific urban challenges. Some of the chapter titles really caught my eye, like equitable access to water and sanitation and safe cities. Any surprising or insightful solutions in those chapters?
Yeah, definitely. In the equitable access to water and sanitation chapter, she talks about how even simple tech solutions can make a huge difference, like using sensors to detect leaks in water pipes, which not only reduces water waste, but also makes sure people have more reliable access to clean water, especially in underserved communities. It's a small fix with potentially massive benefits for public health and quality of life.
That's a great example of how targeted tech can address very specific needs. What about safe cities? Anything jump out at you there?
Yeah, she discusses using predictive analytics in that chapter to identify high crime areas. So law enforcement can be deployed more effectively. It's a powerful tool, but it's super important to make sure it's used responsibly and ethically to protect people's rights rather than infringing on them.
It all comes back to responsible implementation. Now, before we move on, I want to circle back to something we mentioned earlier about Dr. Higgy being both a scientist and an artist. What do you think that unique combination brings to her view of urban planning?
I think it's really fascinating. It suggests she's willing to think outside the box and to see how things are interconnected. And that's definitely reflected in her approach to urban planning. It's not just about crunching numbers, it's about understanding people, the culture of cities, and creating spaces that are both functional and inspiring.
I love that. Functional and inspiring. That's a great note to wrap up this first part of our deep dive.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the future of cities. One thing that really struck me about Dr. Heggie's book is her optimism. She manages to combine all this complex data analysis with a genuine sense of hope about the future of cities.
It's definitely a nice change of pace. She clearly wants to make cities better for everyone, not just a privileged few. And that brings me to something else that stood out to me, her emphasis on equity. It's not just about efficiency or cool technology. It's about using data to really understand the needs of diverse communities and finding solutions that work for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. That commitment to equity is woven throughout her data-driven approach. It's about leveling the playing field and using data to shine a light on inequalities that might otherwise go unnoticed.
So can you give us some concrete examples? How is data actually being used to promote equity in cities?
One powerful example is mapping and analyzing access to essential services, like healthcare, education, transportation, by identifying areas where access is limited. City planners can target investments and interventions strategically, making sure that all residents have a fair shot at a good quality of life.
So using data to create a more level playing field, ensuring everyone has access to those basic services.
Exactly. It's about moving beyond anecdotes and gut feelings and using data to make informed decisions that benefit the whole community.
Now, something else that keeps coming up is this idea of citizen science. What role do citizens themselves play in gathering data and shaping solutions? It's not just experts dictating from on high, right?
You got it. Dr. Hagee really stresses that citizens aren't just passive recipients of services, they're active participants in shaping their city. It's about tapping into the collective intelligence and lived experiences of the people who actually live and work in these environments.
So how does that look in practice? What does citizen science actually look like?
It can take many forms, like residents using apps to report potholes, or participating in community surveys to share their opinions on development projects. This kind of engagement not only provides valuable data, but it also empowers residents and strengthens communities.
Sounds like a win-win. Improving the city while giving residents a sense of ownership. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about sustainability. It's a word we hear all the time. But what does sustainable urban development really mean? Like, how does it actually play out?
Dr. Heggie defines it pretty clearly. She says it's about creating cities that meet the needs of the present, without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs.
Okay, that makes sense in theory, but how do we actually get there? It seems like such a huge undertaking.
It's definitely a complex challenge, but data plays a crucial role. For example, cities can use data to track carbon emissions, pinpoint areas of high energy consumption, and implement strategies to reduce their environmental impact. This could involve investing in renewable energy, encouraging energy-efficient buildings, or making sustainable transportation more accessible.
So it's about using data to make smarter decisions about how we design, build, and manage our cities.
Exactly. And it's not just about minimizing our impact on the environment. It's about making cities resilient in the face of climate change. This could mean designing infrastructure that can withstand extreme weather, integrating green spaces to manage stormwater runoff, or developing early warning systems for natural disasters.
So a broad, holistic approach to sustainability,
Yeah.
taking into account environmental, social, and economic factors.
Absolutely. And that's where data can be so powerful. It allows us to model different scenarios, to assess the potential consequences of our decisions, and to make choices that promote a more sustainable and equitable future for everyone.
We've covered so much ground already, but I feel like we've just scratched the surface of what Dr. Heggie explores in her book. There's so much to unpack when it comes to the future of cities.
There definitely is. And we haven't even touched on the chapters on specific challenges like transportation, healthcare, education, and public safety. Dr. Heggie delves into each of these areas with incredible depth and insight.
Welcome back to our deep dive. We're wrapping up our look at the future of cities with Dr. Heggie. We've talked about a lot of big ideas, but I want to get into the nitty-gritty. How can data actually be used to solve some of those everyday problems that city dwellers face? What are some specific areas Dr. Heggie focuses on?
She covers a lot of ground, but one that immediately comes to mind is transportation. Always a hot topic for anyone living in a busy city.
Oh yeah, tell me about it. Traffic jams, crowded subways waiting forever for the bus. Sometimes it feels easier to just stay home. But Dr. Heggie seems to think data can help us out here.
Absolutely. She believes data can help us completely rethink transportation, make it more efficient, sustainable, and equitable for everyone.
Oh, I'm listening. What kind of solutions are we talking about?
Well, we mentioned using real-time data to improve traffic flow, but it goes way beyond that. Cities can use data to encourage people to choose more sustainable transportation options, like cycling or public transit. For example, some cities are using apps that give you real-time info on bus and train schedules, which makes public transit a lot more appealing.
Yeah, I've seen those apps. They seem pretty useful. What about cycling? A lot of cities are trying to become more bike-friendly, but there are still challenges. Can data help with that?
For sure. Cities can use data to map out safe and efficient bike routes, to plan bike sharing programs, even to analyze cycling patterns to understand how people are using bikes to get around.
Okay.
It's like using data to create a whole new ecosystem for cyclists.
That's pretty cool. It sounds like data can really change the game when it comes to getting around the city. Now, what about healthcare? That's another crucial part of city life. How can data help improve access to healthcare and make it better for everyone?
There's a ton of potential there. Cities can use data to map health trends, to pinpoint areas where certain health problems are more common, and then they can target interventions more effectively. They can also use data to make healthcare delivery more efficient, like by coordinating care between different providers.
So instead of just reacting to problems, we can use data to be more proactive and preventative.
Exactly. And with things like telemedicine and those wearable health trackers becoming so popular, we're generating more health data than ever before. The challenge is using that data responsibly and effectively to improve people's lives.
It's amazing how much data we create without even thinking about it. Speaking of data and technology, what about education? A lot of schools are having trouble keeping up with the digital age. Can data help bridge that gap?
Dr. Heggie sees data as a key tool for transforming education in cities. Schools can use data to personalize learning, tailor instruction to each student's individual needs. Data can also be used to identify students who might be struggling, and then provide them with extra support.
So it's about creating a more individualized approach to education, which I think a lot of parents and teachers would appreciate.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the students. Data can also help teachers by providing them with professional development opportunities and helping them use technology more effectively in the classroom.
So data can empower both students and educators to really make the most of digital tools. Okay, one last challenge I want to touch on is public safety. Obviously, a big concern for anyone living in a city. How can data help make cities safer?
Well, we talked earlier about using data to identify high crime areas and to deploy law enforcement more strategically. But it's not just about policing. Cities can use data to address the underlying causes of crime, to implement preventative programs, and to create public spaces that are truly safe for everyone.
So it's a more holistic approach, looking at the social and economic factors that can contribute to crime.
Exactly. And it's about building trust between law enforcement and the community. Some cities are even using data to track police interactions with the public, to identify potential biases and improve accountability.
Wow, it's amazing how data can be used to address so many different challenges, from traffic to healthcare to public safety. It feels like we're just starting to understand the power of data to improve city life.
I completely agree. And Dr. Heggie's book offers a really inspiring vision of what that future could look like. A future where data helps us create cities that are not only efficient and technologically advanced, but also equitable, sustainable, and truly enjoyable to live in.
It's a powerful and hopeful vision. A big thank you to Dr. Heggie for sharing her insights and giving us so much to think about.
And to our listeners, as you go about your day in your city, we leave you with this question: what data-driven solutions would you prioritize to make your city a better place? It's worth considering because the future of our cities depends on the choices we make today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.